Next, we have Carbine. Dun, 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 dun. I think this was the longest time you've been at one studio at this point.
Yes.
So what was going on here? You came in as an associate producer of design.
Yes.
Okay. Take us through that.
Okay.
How did that come to fruition?
So, at the end of my time at Way Forward, I had finished Batman the Brave and the Bold. They laid off most of the design team because
just the design team?
Well, yeah, pretty much. They just didn't have any positions open for it.
Okay.
And they said, we need you to take a week of furlough and
I've heard that word before.
And can you come back as an associate producer? Because we need a producer type. You're organized and you've done it before. So, and I said, okay. So I didn't really, I was kind of like, well, yeah, I could get back into the production side of things if I need to. Okay. And it was on a SpongeBob title for the U-Draw, which is the THQ like drawing thing that they had. So I wasn't, mega hyped on it. I like SpongeBob, but I wasn't very,
Yeah, SpongeBob's awesome, man.
Yeah, SpongeBob.
Maybe not for U-Draw, but
yeah,
it's amazing.
But hey, dude, I do like SpongeBob a lot. It's a funny show. But it was just kind of like, I don't, whatever. So I helped out prototype some games, and then I also was helping out organizing the project a bit. And so after that, I started looking elsewhere because if I was on furlough, during that time, and I was like, I need to look for a place that's more stable.
And furlough means you're not fired.
Yes.
But you're not getting paid.
Correct.
And then you come back and you will get paid.
Correct. And I didn't want to be in that situation where I'm like, I don't want to take a summer vacation and not get paid.
Right.
So I wanted to find some place that was more stable. And so I started looking around. I was living in Hollywood at the time, working in Valencia, and my wife was working in Irvine. So we were commuting from Hollywood.
Wow.
Opposite directions.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, I need to find a place in Orange County because she's not moving out of Orange County. Our family's from Orange County. We should just go there.
Smart. That's a smart choice.
Yeah. And so I said, okay, I need to start applying. And I applied at Carbine, and luckily the person who was doing the hiring knew somebody from Disney Interactive that I worked with.
So they put in a good word for you.
They put in a good word for me.
That's amazing.
So, and then the interview went pretty well, and so I got the job. I was really lucky. A guy named Eric DeMilt hired me, and so I worked with him for a while, and he's like, well, because you have design experience, we have our design team is getting pretty big, and we need a designer producer. Somebody that basically just works with designers only. And
so did they create a role for you, or was this a role they were looking to fill? Someone that could do both things.
Yeah, they were looking for the role. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like I have a background in production, and I have I worked in design for years. So yeah, this is going to be great.
That's awesome.
So I worked with them, and when I got there, it was disorganized. It was very kind of Wild West. They had gone through multiple IPs. It wasn't even WildStar at the time when I got there. And so...
Also, what WildStar became, it turned into WildStar? The same assets were used for a different type of game? Oh, yeah, wow.
Exactly. So
it's like Overwatch.
Yes,
kinda.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it was very much like Overwatch.
Okay.
They were kind of like, we have all these cool assets, and they look really good. We just need to make a better IP. And the core experience was not great. Like it was just, it worked. The art was pretty, and you could do quests and stuff, but there was nothing really that was particularly interesting about it. And I remember playing it, and I remember thinking, well, they still have time, right? And I didn't know that they had started basically in 2004 or 5. And so it was 2009 or 10 at the time. So they had been in development a long time. So for
that is a long time, like 5 years, right?
Yeah. So for me, that was a little bit weird, and they were still not at a point where they even had like a vertical slice that was good. So I was kind of like, oh, this is weird. But they eventually, there were a few teams that had started kind of being formed, and they said, okay, we're going to figure this out. And so they made this combat system that was really cool. And
it was different.
Yeah. It was for an MMO at the time. It was definitely different. And so we were playing it internally, and we were like, man, this is really fun. Like the prototype of it was actually really good. And it was the first time I think I had played the game and gone like, this is fun. Like I'm actually having fun.
Like you found the fun and you're like, let's do it.
Yeah.
This is it, guys.
Well, what was crazy was they came in over the weekend and like made this. Like,
Oh, wow.
It was kind of a passion project with a couple of VFX artists, an animator, and some designers. And they made this combat system, you know, in a prototype form that was, you know, it showed what it was. And I was like, man, this is good. Like you guys, this is really good. And they went to the executive producer and said, you know, this is how the combat should be in this game. And he said, are you willing to bet your job on it that it's going to be good? Because we have to rip out a lot of assets and we have to change a lot of things and we have to change the way that characters work and enemies work and all this stuff. And he's like, yeah. And I agreed with him. I think it was absolutely, you should risk your job on it because the other stuff was boring and it wasn't worthwhile. And
boring as in, was it like every other type of MMO where
every
it was
other
like
tab targeting, you've done
get
this
your
before.
fishing rod,
Yes.
go do this, go collect 100 pelts.
Yes. It was all very tried and true MMO kind of stuff. So they started kind of going through the combat and fixing that, and they also kind of uprooted how they were doing some of their questing and all these different systems that kind of layered on top of each other. And so it was all like it was on the up and up. It was kind of moving in that direction. And then there was this point, I remember working on it, where somebody had basically said, there was this process where I started thinking about like, why is it that they didn't make something for so long, like, and stick with it?
You mean at the studio or just
studio.
the people in charge?
Like everybody. Like,
okay.
Why was it that they never were able to find a vertical slice? And then they finally did. And the thing that I noticed is they would work on something for 3 months, and then they would show it to the executives or the management, and the management would go, "It's not good enough. Do it again." And it was just like this for years.
Oh, wow. So they had a whole nother umbrella of people they had to appease. And those people were the ones that was making it.
Well,
they
yeah.
couldn't
And
get
to
a
be
vertical
honest,
slice.
they weren't wrong. It wasn't good.
Right.
The stuff that they were getting wasn't good. But the problem is nobody was learning how to make it good. And so luckily there's these things with the combat and with these content changes that were kind of coming in where they were kind of making stuff better. But then what was happening was they were like, okay, we just got to make a lot of it. And the thing that I was noticing was like, your guys' review process is just not good, right? Why would you wait 3 months to find out that something's bad? Why don't you find out if it's bad within 2 weeks?
And then do all that work and then have people checking all this stuff and make all the changes to the engine that you're going to have to change.
So what they needed to do was very early on kind of find a cadence by which they could say, okay, it takes us this long to stand it up ugly, right? To make it so that it's just functional, right? And so within a couple of weeks, they could get a zone or a tract, you know, for us, it was like a small area, you know, with quest hubs and all these things and animals that you put in and spawn and fight and go through the whole thing and quest objectives. And so if you could get that basic setup, then you could play through it. And then what I did was I thought about the stuff from Way Forward where the team would play together. So I was like, okay, well, what if we put the lead content designer in with the staff level content designers and the leads over those things and just play through it ugly and then take the notes, right? And then what I would do is just take all the action items of like, okay, get all the animals off the road. Okay, add these things. Okay, add whatever. And so eventually we got all these notes, and then you would give it back to the people that were making the content, and then the content got better because they were able to react to the notes. And then you would play through it again the next week and then say, okay, it's like 60% better, good, but that 40% we need to improve that. And so over time, those designers start to learn, oh, this is what the lead wants. This is like the kind of thing that he wants to make. Okay, cool. And so they start learning what is good and what's not good, and then, or at least at the very least, what does the guy in charge want, right? Mm-hmm. And so over time, they started making that content, and that review cycle made their stuff stronger, so they were able to get things and move on. And then the management would look at it and go like, "Oh, okay, cool, it's better." So for me, that was like like one of my, sort of, I don't want to say crowning achievements, but it's one of the things I'm most proud of working at WildStar, was because I was able to kind of help them move forward in a way. And that's not to say like because I did that, like they were able to finish stuff. There were a lot of very talented and smart people that if they were not there, then my process wouldn't have mattered. But
that's awesome.
But it helped.
That's awesome. Cool. So all of this went into WildStar that you have written here?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. There was just a lot of, I'd worked my way up from being an associate producer to a regular producer.
So you leveled up in this position.
I did. Yeah.
So what would be your retrospect from this position?
Yeah.
And it looks like you leveled up in here, but what would be your retrospective of your takeaway of like, what would you have done differently after seeing? Now let me restructure this. We're already past the point for our viewers of like, going through the interview, finding that one job where they're like, yes, this is aligned with what I think is fun. And now you're at a position where you've been there for a good chunk of time, 4 years. You've worked on something. You've gone through the processes at the studio. You've seen some pitfalls. You've seen some rebounds. What would you have done differently looking back after the point where you mentioned what their pitfalls were, why they couldn't get a good vertical slice? What were some things that if you look back at it that you take away from that of going like, I need to make sure I don't allow this to happen somewhere else, or if I see this, I need to speak up because that's what they were missing. They were missing that voice at the time. Like what would be some of the takeaways you'd have in this situation?
So I think it's a few things. One, it is having a good review process of having the ability to look at something and understand what is not hitting the quality bar, understanding what the quality bar is so that people can hit it. And then also having a strong vision very early on as to what those things need to be is hypercritical, because if you don't have all three of those things, you can't move forward. And that was the evidence for me. But the thing, if I was to think about it on a more personal level, I think I threw myself very hard into WildStar. Like I did a lot of the videos for, or at least I helped with some of the videos. It wasn't just me. There was lots of people.
Right. No, I'm thinking by saying like that. This was your first time that you put you're all into it. Like you committed your time, like even everything. Outside of work into
Definitely
it.
Outside.
Yeah.
Like I would be reading articles. I did a lot of press for them. I did a lot of like community stuff with them.
Did they ask you to do that, or was this you taking initiative to do that because the belief was so strong of the project and the product and the people, and you guys have found the fun and you were like, yes, I'm going all in?
Yeah, it was both. I think that I would make internal videos for the team, because the team was so huge. There would be people in other departments that are like, what is design doing? Right? I don't even know, what's happening. Or it's art, like I haven't seen any concept art, or I haven't seen any of this. So we would make these videos. And so I'd make videos that were like funny, I'd make jokes and voices and weird stuff, and I'd talk about stuff, and they were like, okay, like you seem like you can communicate with people.
They're like, is this what y'all doing over there? What the hell's going on?
Yeah. Well, they were excited about it, right? They were like, oh, okay, cool. It's good to see all this stuff. And so eventually I just started making these videos, and they were like, man, there was this other point where we felt like we had a cool product, and we felt like the marketing wasn't really hitting it, and or explaining it to people as to why the game was interesting or fun, right? And so internally we kind of thought, we should make like a video that's kind of like why this is fun or why this is interesting. And we did it from like the developer perspective, kind of the behind the scenes, like, hey, we're working on a thing, it's really cool, but we wanted to have an attitude that was very like, hey, we're down to earth, normal ass people that are making funny games. We'll make jokes and stuff, and this is also why it's really cool. Get excited. And so an animator and a VFX artist, and there was a guy who worked in cinematics at the time, who were putting something together, and they reached out and they're like, hey, dude, do you want to be the narrator on some of these things? Do you want to try reading for it? I'm like, sure. So I read through, and I made some jokes and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, this is great. So we put a video together, and we released it to the company just internally.
Wait, were those videos that you guys released kind of showcasing characters and other movesets and things in the game?
Yeah. These were the dev speaks.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So we did the dev speaks, and the first one we made, we showed it to the team, and there were people coming up to me, and they were like, dude, that was really good. like that was really funny and really informative, and it made me like the game more. And I'm like,
did that start, or was that the catalyst for when you guys put out the videos for marketing?
Yes.
And you did it the exact kind of same way, it sounds like?
Yes. In fact, the first one that the second one we released was the first one that we made. So,
oh, wow. Those were done well, too. Those are really polished.
Yeah.
The animation, everything was like top notch.
We did everything internally. There were animated ones that were like kind of like the Team Fortress sort of cinematics.
Right. Like
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, those.
But they were more on the WildStar side, so they had, our mechanics, and they were super well done. That was all done internally. And then we also did these sort of, here's a feature, let's talk about it, and it'll be slightly sarcastic and, funny and informative. So, we did one, and there were a lot of people who are like, dude, this is really good. You should make more. And so we did. And that was, I would work on my normal stuff during the day as a producer, and then they'd be like, okay, from 3 to 4, you're going to go in the booth and record a bunch of audio to go over what, we're capturing for this thing. So we did it, and the first one that we released had like a few 100,000 views.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, damn, that picked up really. Yeah. That's crazy. And we went to
this was before the game came out too.
Yes.
This was all still marketing.
This was like 2012, 2013 maybe. Okay. 2012, I think. I can't remember. It's 2012 or 2013. And so, and it came out, and people were like, dude, this is hysterical. This is really funny stuff. This is really cool.
And it was different when it came out.
Yeah, it was very different. And so
from the MMO vibe.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there were a lot of people that were like, oh, this is kind of cool. So it started building up more. And then they were like, well, can you do some press for us? Like, can you go to Europe and talk to a bunch of press outlets in, the Netherlands and France and England? And I'm like, of course I'm going to fucking go do that. Right.
You know what's awesome about that? You made that happen. You and the group you worked with.
Yeah.
Because not just you, right? But you guys made that happen.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That was really cool. That's one of those things that I'm really happy to have been a part of. It was definitely like, I was not the catalyst in any way for that. That was more of like, I remember complaining one day. I'm like, our like marketing videos are kind of like, and somebody else on the team who is a lot more motivated than I was at the time was like, I agree, let's do a thing, right? And so we just kind of made it, and from there, like a full-on team just got established because they were like, okay, you guys are really good at this, just keep going.
That's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I think in general, that was what was cool was that not only did the team as a whole recognize it, but management was like, yeah, there's something here, so just keep doing it. And so then I started turning into this voice for the game in a way, right, where I would not only do the videos, but I would do press, I would do live streams, I would do all this stuff. I'd go to IGN and play the game with them, and show off the game and stuff like that. But the thing that I learned out of that is, you have to have the motivation to go like, no, I care about this more than just it's 9 to 5 or like whatever, and have the tenacity to make it good. But the downside of this was, if things went bad, it was my fault. Right.
Because you were the face.
Because I was the face.
Yeah.
So I'd get this stuff on like Twitter where people are like, fix your servers, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not an engineer, right?
You got to not take those things personal. Yeah. Those are crazy times.
Yeah.
You have people commenting like that.
Well, you never read the comment section, and I'm the type of person that does, though.
Yeah.
So I'd read them, and I'm like, oh, like I was dying inside. Because
you needed an assistant to tell you everything's good. Yeah. Don't worry about anything while they're reading them.
I would have loved that. Because I was slowly dying inside because I just had all this stuff. My wife also at the time went to school in Northern California to finish her master's degree. So I totally threw myself into WildStar. I just said, okay, I'm just going to work my ass off.
Oh, so you're there with free time because she was away.
Because she was gone.
Okay.
Right? I had nothing else to do. So I was just like, okay, I'm just going to work my ass off. I'm going to travel all over the place. I'm going to do all this stuff. And so I threw myself so hard into it that I kind of was like, I need a break from the internet for a while, because I was up at like 2 a.m. and when she moved back, I was still in that mode. And I'm like 2 a.m. on my phone responding to tweets. She's like, why are you responding to tweets at 2 a.m? Go to sleep. And I'm like, why am I doing this? This is so dumb. Why am I doing this? And there weren't good things. Like, there were people like, I can't believe you guys did this to the spell slinger. You guys ruined the game. And I'm like, well, I thank you for your feedback, but right.
Yeah, and responding is a no-no too. Like trying to respond to everything is something that you learn is like it's not beneficial. It's people want their outlet. Let them say what they got to say. Let them have their piece at it.
Right.
Because you may not be able to fix everything.
You're definitely not going to be able to fix everything. And my perspective at the time, which in hindsight was wrong, was as a fan, like I would always, like in movies, I'm a huge Indiana Jones, like my favorite movie of all time. Love it. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
The series or just the first movie?
The first movie.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, the first movie is the best one. The Last Crusade's the second best, and then Temple of Doom. But we don't talk about the fourth one. So I think I always love watching like the DVD commentary, and I love watching the behind the scenes, how they make stuff. I'm a huge nerd for how they make things. That's just my thing. And I always hated it when I tried to reach out or talk to somebody. Like if I saw somebody famous that worked on a thing, and I'm like, man, I love this thing, and they were like, I don't have time for you. I hated it, right? Because I was like, man, I'm going out of my way to tell you I appreciate what you did, and you're just treating me like an asshole. So on Twitter, I was trying to respond and not be that guy, right? And in so doing, I think it created this expectation that we're like, oh, well, he's going to respond to me, right? And my response rate was like super high at the cost of my sanity, right? So I kind of learned over time, like, okay, I'm not going to respond to everybody. I'm not going to go out of my way to like respond to even negative things. I don't need to. Right. There's just some things where maybe I can deliver a quick response, but I shouldn't go out of my way to do everything. So I learned not to take like all of the world's weight on your shoulders, because there's a community team. That's their job. Right. That's what they're supposed to do. Right. So I did. The upside is because I busted my ass and put everything on my shoulders, I got a lot of experience and got to do a lot of really cool things.
You got to be cultured a little bit more too. Going out of the country,
Yep.
out of the state to go talk.
Got to go do lots of things. But at the same time, I took so much that it kind of broke me for a little bit. I was super exhausted.